I get a black belt, that was in my head. I'm like, it's kind of like one of those things. I'm like, I could check that off. It was like, if you love Jiu-Jitsu, you've been doing it for a while, but you're over 35. Your mindset is probably a little bit like this. Find the right techniques, get the right systems and the strategy, and then develop a mindset to implement and make them work. In the 20 years that I've been doing Jiu-Jitsu, found it is actually the other way around. Having the right mindset and then a clear objective, and then finding the systems and the strategies that fit that objective, that fit your body, fit where you're at, adding the right systems and strategies into that mindset and into that objective. And that shift alone is what will allow you to do training that keeps you consistent, makes you have fun, keeps you coming back, and most importantly, stops your body breaking down and feeling like it's a grind, like you've got to grind it out, to actually being able to have fun and enjoy your training and gradually see yourself progressing towards your goals. That's what I want to unpack in this video. Also, I do have a school group where I talk about this a lot, and I do lives and that kind of thing. So if you're interested, I will drop a link below in the description of this video. Right, let's get into it. I think the easiest way that I can talk about mindset and talk about how that relates to goals and that kind of thing is kind of just relaying my story a little bit. I lived on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, and there wasn't really a jiu-jitsu scene there at the time. So I got into freestyle martial arts, which was basically like a taekwondo for effective street self-defense. And I just lost my dad at that stage. So I was in like a really bad kind of a self-destructive place, because I was in that sort of space of like, no, nothing, life's not worth living anymore kind of thing. It was like, well, I just need a physical answer. I need to put myself physically into something that will start to get, turn my mindset around. At least if I get a black belt, this was the mindset that was in my head. I'm like, it's kind of like one of those things. I'm like, I could check that off. It was like getting my trade as a bricklayer. I'm like, I kind of hate this work, but if I get that piece of paper, it'll kind of make everything better. I just applied that same train of thinking to my own mindset. I'm like, hey, if I just get a black belt in something, I'm actually going to be good at this. And obviously, having watched, a lot of Jackie Chan and Jean-Claude Van Damme movies and all those kind of cool things, I was enamored with the idea of being able to fight. And I'd previously done a bit of Muay Thai and Krav Maga, and that when I was, before I moved to the Sunshine Coast. So I'd always had like a bit of an affinity towards martial arts. So I was like, all right, now I'm actually going to start using it for my own mind and mindset and progress. So I just want you to think, if you're thinking about MMA and self-defense, that kind of thing, generally when we do these kind of training, we don't tend to think of like long-term. We tend to think about it needs to be effective and it needs to work, and it needs to work straight away. When we don't have too much knowledge of the best way to train, it turns out into being like, if it's striking, it just tends to be like hit hard, trying to get his hits, but basically just take the punches on your forehead if you can, and then try and hit them harder than they hit you kind of mentality. My coach at the time, he wanted me to understand a book called by, I think it was Dan Thompson, like called Dead or Alive, which was basically about how does street fights, what's the reality, how does it actually work from a security guard's point of view, and how does it work in the real world. A big point of it was basically all your fights are going to end up on the ground at some point. So any kind of a street altercation, it's going to be short, it's going to be violent, and it's going to end up on the ground. So be violent, train like explosive, and learn how to fight on the ground. About that time, we were lucky enough to have a guy come over from England, and he was a black belt at the time, when a blue belt was like amazing then. So as I got into my blue belt and purple belt years, I actually stopped the bricklaying thing and went away, and I did about 5.5 years worth of like mining. And a lot of that was 3 weeks on or 4 weeks on and 1 week off. So it didn't give me a lot of time to actually like structure my training. And so when I'd come back, then anytime I'd go to places, it would always be about winning the rounds. And as like a blue belt, and then into early purple belt years, everywhere we go, whether we were doing a seminar somewhere or whether we were attending a seminar, I always kind of felt like I had a bit of something to prove, basically. And it was always about, you know, if I ever got submitted or swept or anything happened, it was like, oh man, I've got to reverse this situation. I've got to prove back to the other person that I'm better than what they are, or I'm extremely good for my level. Yeah, it became like kind of kill or be killed mentality. You know, I'm like, say 25, 26 at this stage, and I'm just like, it's got to be smash, bang, crash, make it work, train harder. If it's not working, it's because you haven't drilled it enough. And if you have drilled it enough, that's probably not enough if it's not working. So you need to like put it under some kind of a constraint so that you build up the muscle memory. And it was this kind of a mentality that I did most of my training. If we sort of fast forward a few years now, and then I have gotten sick of being away mining and that sort of thing, wanted to meet somebody. So I've moved back to Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast areas, continuing my training and getting it a lot more systemized. These jobs around town that allowed me to train pretty much 4 to 6 days a week, and you know, do supplement with weights and that kind of thing. So I started actually going, all right, this is what I do. Like, especially I remember at that time, one of the big things I wanted to learn was the over-under parts. So I'd go and do classes and I'd have rolls, but then I'd put time in afterwards just to like pass guard in with one specific pass. And then I was like, oh, okay, so it's not just about doing jiu-jitsu for the sake of winning the round. Although I will say that even though I competed at all of the belts, only local comps, if it's not like a high level competition like ADCC or Worlds or something where you're getting paid to really show up and you're like actually putting in a bit of a kick for, I would still consider that to be hobbyist. Oh, wait a second, I do need to just interrupt this edit really quickly to say that if your goal is local competition and white and blue belt level, then having death matches with people that are similar size, age, weight and skill to you at the gym is a good idea. Not a bad idea. It's only a bad idea if you plan to do jiu-jitsu for a long time, or you like to have friends at training and that kind of thing. Otherwise, go nuts, have death matches. It's going to shorten your time on the mats, and it's going to not make you many friends, and it will definitely limit your ceiling as far as like potential growth is concerned. But if your goal is just low-level local competition, then death matches. There's that there to consider as well. You know, if you're training every day, it should be like maybe 2 days of the week where you maybe have, say, Monday and Friday, where you have like a few rounds of like your comp style training, but then the rest of the rounds need to be where you're working out techniques and you're exploring different things. You're refining the stuff that you're really good at, and you're also like putting a little bit of time into expanding onto new things. Let's fast forward a few more years, and then I've taken over the gym at Mauricio as a brown belt, and I am teaching classes. But then, as a coach and as somebody that people come and talk to, as like the head coach of the gym, and we're basically the only person in the gym at the initial stage, I needed to, well, I didn't need to, but I felt as though, it's all on me. So I need to be the macho guy, the guy that doesn't matter who comes into the gym, I can show them how easily it is that I can towel them up, get the better of them, do submissions, reversals, you know, all that kind of thing. And also, if you talk to me about techniques, I know all of the techniques too. It wasn't so much that I felt, for me personally, like I needed to win every round, but I sort of felt like, well, my new students or like other travelers that come into the gym, they're kind of watching to see what the head coach is like. I need to at least show them that I can get submissions and prove myself in every round. When you're doing that 6 days a week, really took a toll on my body. And especially towards the end of my brown belt and then the start of my black belt. And here's like a little side note. A lot of people say when you first get your black belt, that year after you get the black belt is going to be some of the hardest roles that you've ever had in your life. I can see why that's true for a lot of people, but that probably 8 or 9 months at the end of my brown belt was so intensely physical and so hard that it kind of felt a little bit like when I got my black belt. I had so many eyes on me, people just trying to take my head off every single day. It was almost like getting the belt was a little bit like people sort of almost psyched themselves out of it. Like, oh, it's like a black belt now, he must know something crazy that we don't know. After that, it did get back into that I need to win every single round. It's even more important now because I'm black belt and I need to like prove to myself that I can compete at black belt and win and medal. And that led to me, at about this time too, I lost my younger sister, so that put a lot of mental load on me as well. But I just kind of felt like I need to medal at black belt, and I thought the way to get that was to roll hard. So what you say, they're going to be like kill or be killed style of rounds until we even out and we understand that, okay, we need to have ups and downs and that sort of thing. And seeing my students go through this kind of a journey and going through this journey myself, competitively wise, because even though I felt like I needed to win that medal, I also felt like it wasn't completely the most important thing for me personally, but for people around me. I'm like, I need to prove that the way that I roll is effective for a competitor. That led to me losing lots of competitions. I didn't document it all because I had some terrible performances. And it wasn't until I actually shifted my mindset as a coach to, okay, what I want to work on is this. I want to, so it's a lot of the times it would just come down to me choosing to go, I only want to go into this role so that I can work on a half guard thing, or I only want to get this role, I only want to think about like front headlock style thing, or I'd really isolate things out. And then I'd be competing in different things that kind of give me different levels of success in different competitions. But ultimately, I'd either lose in the semi-finals or the finals, and then, you know what I mean? I started to go, okay, I don't want to focus on a specific technique and forcing that to work. I want to go into training sessions with the idea of I want to control certain grips, and I want to control the intensity and my own personal output. That was when I started to realize, okay, if I use my energy and the amount that I'm breathing as a gauge, then I can actually structure this. So I booked myself in for a comp about 2.5 months out, and I planned to modulate my training up and down with the goal of going into the competition simply because I just wanted to go in and be present in the competition, and whatever mistakes I made, I just wanted to be aware that I was making mistakes at the time and then improve on them. I didn't even put any pressure on myself to win. I just wanted to have fun and not go too hard so that I could feel present. In my no-gi, I won 2 matches to take out the gold in the final. So that was like a nice little confirmation for me that I'm like, okay, this mindset works really good. Whatever your objective is, have that in your head and be detached from the result of the competition or the result of the role or training the right way or having the right techniques. The right techniques are only the things that work well for you and your objective, especially if you're newer in your journey or you're kind of wondering where, like, it feels like I'm fighting an uphill battle and I'm not really progressing. Detach from the physical outcomes and tune in more to the mental outcomes and the energy outlets of your own training. That way you're going to get more, you're going to see the progression, and then it will also translate over into the other things once you're detached from it. If you're solely driven by the physical things, and remember I said I got into martial arts with the physical things, and it took me basically 15 years, 16 years to train to actually realize that it's more about the mental things that give you the physical things in the long run. So clarity around why you're training and that mindset is so important to get crystal clear on that, so that then all of your training can easily funnel into that and you can actually see the results that you need to see. So I'll chuck some links down below. Like I said before, drop us a DM, do a comment and do it, that sort of subscribey stuff, because that's sick for the algorithm. And I really want to try and grow this YouTube channel and really put out some awesome content. So if that sort of stuff is cool, or if you've got something else that you'd like me to speak on, because I ramble on and about all sorts of crazy weird stuff at different times, typical sort of black belt philosophy, I don't even know how to say that word. Anyway guys, I'll talk to you soon.